I can see and visualize in 3D. A lot of people can't, but I noticed that a reoccurring theme that people weren't acting on these reports. So we thought we'd take a different perspective and try to show this visually and allow non-technical people or people that are very busy to understand the risk and move forward. So we have a collaboration with a number of companies. This is a slide that I've used with Coastal Action. CBC, we were in Information Morning yesterday, and they announced that we have a 3-year contract with Coastal Action to do seaside communities. It's a fairly minor thing, but it's a step in the right direction. So most of us, I just got a few screenshots of flooding across Canada. I know that's accepted now by most people, but not all. It is global warming. There's some screenshots of different news things throughout Asia and Europe. So what we decided to do is, well, what's the issue? Well, some people do understand. Sorry, they do know, but they're not doing anything. They're hearing but not understanding. So we decided that if we came at this, we wanted to use a scientific approach and be able to show risk due to wildfires, fluvial flooding, sea level rise, storm surge, and coastal erosion. So next slide. We sought the input and support of different groups, the National Research Council of Canada, NSERC, which was mentioned by another presenter. We've done some work with NSCC and the Applied Geomatics Research Group. We've had some support from ACOA. We've done some pilot projects with Indigenous services through the Emergency Management Assistance Program. We've worked with the Atlantic Fisheries doing bathymetric data for Buck and Keg First Nation. There's a few towns that we've talked about here, and we've done some, as Scott can tell you, we've done a little bit of work for doing 3D wildfire modeling for Medway, Ponoak, and Wildcat Reserve. So we've been working on this for a while, and we don't claim to be the technical authorities, but we claim to be, it is our desire to be the visualization experts for scientific knowledge. So what are some of the things that we had to overcome? Well, LiDAR. Most of you are probably very familiar with it, so I'll just talk about it. It's a measurement of elevation by typically an aircraft or a remote, like say, I guess the next gentleman or person is going to talk about remotely piloted aircraft systems, drones or the like. They take laser measurements of elevation every 10 centimeters or so, and then they take high resolution orthophotos. So those files are huge. And typically what they're used in computations by some of perhaps modelers, and then the output is a 2D, I'll say, topographical style map with color coding. Now, it's not really relatable to most people, and it's sort of abstract. So we decided we had to overcome the LiDAR file size. So we developed our own intellectual property, and we have a parsing program. We realized that we had to communicate it for everybody to use it. So we wrote our own web app, and we have a 3D model that's interactive in real time through a web browser. And we wanted to empower people to make decisions. So seeing is believing. Now, it also has to work on anything, because when I went to a lot of First Nation communities throughout Atlantic Canada and Nova Scotia, a lot of people don't have computers. The internet's not a real big presence on a lot of First Nation communities, but many, many people have smartphones. What I'm going to show you will work on a smartphone. It's basically agnostic to most of the operating systems, as long as you have an up-to-date browser. So on our website, we have a video of it showing it being taught and in action, but I'm going to jump right in and talk about the real world demos, because I know we have short time. One of our older models, it's not our best work, but it is near where near Kejimkujik. It's on the Medway Reserve. I'd like to show that because there, in that particular model, it was our beta version of doing fire modeling, and I also can do a little bit of fluvial river flooding, and I can show removing the topographical foliage away down to the geo terrain, so you can show some of the different aspects. With the Blue Rocks demo, if we have time, I can show where we control flow through culverts that helps backflow into the some infrastructure. In the Mahone Bay Living Shoreline, we show an engineered solution, mitigation solution put in place, and we can run scenarios actively, both floods and storm surge with and without the mitigation strategy. So I'm going to stop sharing and pick up the web browser. Is everybody good so far? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. All good.
All good.
Yes, thank you.
I need that hallelujah or I'll go away. All right. So see a new screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So this is an older version. There are some improvements that may not be totally visible or to you, but our resolution has gotten a lot better for some of our graphics. Nonetheless, we'll run this one. So a bunch of interactive screens. This just tells you when the LiDAR was collected and what the purpose of it is. And I'm just going to go through this really quick. I'm using a wheeled mouse. You can use it on a touch screen like your phone or a tablet. If I say I'm zooming in, I'm using the wheeled mouse. There's a slider here. Now we have on this is just simply a bathtub model for river levels. However, in other models, you can apply tides, storm surge, and fluvial flooding depending on the scenario. Now, we decided that we wanted to make this for communities, but First Nation communities and communities in general. So we have the ability to add content so information can be shared to the populace, whether about mitigation strategies or emergency preparedness or education or reports. So I'll get into this, but essentially, through our web app, you can put resources. You can have active links offsite. You can have embedded documents, Word documents, PDFs. You can seek photos of the community before and during storms. We've created some videos for Acadia First Nation that's maybe in this one, and different settings to allow you to turn, like say, town boundaries or say reserve outlines on and off. Screenshot if you want to share what you're seeing and doing. So yeah, this is a link to Acadia's First Nations website. Fire visualization, I'll show you that. Now this is a simplistic modeling that we've done. It's based on Byram's fire intensity formulas. We're working currently with Natural Resources Canada, the Canadian Forestry Service. We're working with their fire scientists and their programmers. We're rigorizing this to the Prometheus model, if any of you are familiar with that. So a lot of talking. Here's the website. Now, the graphics are far more detailed on our later versions. This is an early version, and it's super smooth on mine, but it's probably choppy when I'm showing you here in through Zoom. How is it for everybody? I'm going to assume good.
It's a bit choppy, but not bad. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I'll just show you here. Like I say, it's smooth on my screen. I'm going to show you that what's left of the reserve land. If you can see that, believe it or not, after encroachment, we're left with a tiny little piece of land on the water. Okay, so there's always a need for housing. So this is a potential area in which there is some, there's a community and all that. So houses could be built. However, it's on the Medway River. So I'm going to go and flood that river a little bit. I'm going to take it up a meter. You don't see really too much happening. Going to take it up 2 meters. You can see over here that it's starting to flood a little bit. But you say, well, it's not really affecting the reserve land. Well, let me go, for example, and remove the elevation of the trees. She's flooded. Now, one of the things this allows land use planning, and in some cases for like coastal towns, it will also allow you to use it for EMO. Sometimes we have storms come in, the last one being Dorian. The regional EMO officer used the model for Lunenburg and Mahone Bay for planning. So I'm going to put the elevation of the trees back on. and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set a fire. Now, it's not on the reserve, but as someone said, fire and climate change, it really has no boundaries. So I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go and select fire simulation. So this is a rudimentary thing, but it is based on physics and science. It's working with, I'm going to say, arbitrary wood inventory and arbitrary fire index. We basically went in the middle, or we play with the fire index a little bit with the dryness, but we assumed that this was mature fir. We're working with Natural Resources Canada to have an active fire index, wood inventory. So wherever the fire is being modeled, I know the resolution of that information is a bit coarse, but that will be in there rather than arbitrary me looking at it and saying, let's go with fir, right? So I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to pick a location. You can pick multiple locations, but I'm going to drop and start a fire. So the compass rose, okay, that the center of that will be where the fire starts. I'm going to show you we can control the wind direction, and you can see the arrow move. We can control the wind strength by increasing the arrow's length and the intensity of the color. Okay, the dryness we can play with, and I'll show you that. And we can have multiple fires, and I can show you how once a fire gets going, it gets a life onto its own. And if I start another fire as if it was started by embers and it's forward, it won't burn as fast, but they will merge. But having said that, let's just hit start. So the fire is, I'm going to just play with the dryness. I'm gonna reduce the dryness, so you can see that it's not burning as hot. If the wood is dry, you can see that it's going to get a bit more intense and it will start propagating quicker. So I'm going to take it down a little bit. And I'm going to play with the wind direction. Right now, as you can see, it's going towards the southeast. I'm going to change the wind directly from the north. And it's still, you can see that the fire is still moving to the southeast, but it's starting to slowly move towards the south. Now the wind's going to pick up. And so I've got a higher wind, and I'm going to play with the dryness now. And it's a bit drier. So you'll see that this takes off quite a bit. And as you can see now, it's more moving towards the south. So I'm going to play with the dryness again, just to show you how, so it's so dry, so when I put the fire out, well, I guess that works. Let me just start another location. So just very quickly, I played with that too much. I'm just going to show you how rapidly we can change that direction. And I started another fire, and those two will creep in. And if I play with them, you'll see that they will actually. You see, if I play with this, I can slow them down a little bit. But long story short, I'm going to put this on pause. This is just a beta test, but we've done it for a couple other First Nation communities, and we're rigorizing the model. But what we have in this map is the ability to set fires and do tabletop planning for EMO people, firefighters in any given community. We can play and look at the risk of water flooding along a riverbank or an area such as, like, say, a coastal area. And so I'm going to reset all of this. I'm going to close this. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go through this. We can pick through this model. There's a bunch of things that you can click on and go in to predefined zooms. And you can see, I don't know how clear you can see this, but these objects in the trees all have elevation, and they're correct within 3 centimeters. You can go to any of these locations, go through the pull-down menu, for example. So you have access, and you can see the detail. You can see the piles of lumber. So if we were to flood this, now mind you, we're going to have a hard time to flood that, but you can see that it's coming in right even to the wood piles and around the houses. So all of a sudden, the risk is personal. It's measurable. It's understandable. Now it's simplistic. We don't have velocity in this particular model, and even when we do some of the coastal stuff, our dynamic stuff is a simplistic bathtub. But the argument is, well, that's not completely realistic. Yeah, well, this is the best case given that, say, projected elevation or rise of water. If there's volume or velocity in there, then it gets worse. Until people see it, they don't even understand if they're going to get their shoes wet or if their cars are going to be swept away. So I'm going to go to the next thing here. Under here, you can go and click on the weather. This is an external link, so you can check to see what the weather is at any given day. Let's just check that. My internet connection is obviously slow. Liverpool, I think we give Liverpool and Kedgie. So if you can talk about the conditions, or if there's a storm announcement, it will be in a red banner here. We just picked CBC, but Environment Canada obviously works. Other things that we have in here, and it's only limited by what people ask. Like, for example, Katie First Nation Emergency Management Plan, different articles and like how to prepare for floods. Let me just click on this one. I haven't seen this one for a while. So it's from Flood Smart. And if you click on it, it will actually open up a PDF document. So it's embedded in this. We have access to videos. There's a couple videos that we created, and this particular one here is the one that sort of got us in the headspace to saying that we needed to communicate. Pictures. I don't think there's much pictures in here. But for some of the Mahone Bay models, we set up a Facebook page, and people sent us in photos so we could show what it actually looks like on the ground. And if we have chance, I could actually show you what Mahone Bay photos will look like against the modeling. So I'm going to close that. I think we've touched on this a bit. And a snapshot, you click on that, and it will generate a photograph which you can share. I say this, or it's opening up. Oh, there it is. There it is. So if you open it up, you can, and I don't think you can see this. No, I guess you can't. I'm going to stop sharing this particular screen and ask if there's any questions before I go on. Any questions? I'm going to take that as a no. How am I doing for time, Leaf?
You're at about 1:25, and you have until 1:40. So
I'm going to go. If you don't mind, I'll show another demo then. One that
sounds great.
That you might find interesting. I'm going to click on the Blue Rocks demo, or Mahone Bay. Now you're probably not seeing that, right?
We're not seeing it yet, but
yeah,
it looks like it's moving.
Okay, we'll try this again. Where did we go? Share. So we have another model here. This is of Lunenburg and Blue Rocks. I'm going to bypass all of the things here. We had some support from different groups, including the RBC and TD and the town of Lunenburg, interactions. Okay, so right into this. We're going to go to the wastewater treatment plant. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Lunenburg, but there's front harbor and there's back harbor. And we work with CBCL Limited to have some engineering data in here. There were measurements done to qualify what I'm going to show you. I'm going to jump right into the settings, flooding scenarios. This is from a report. We basically took the data from the report and dropped it right in here. So I'm going to, and through this, it's accessible. If you wanted to click here, you can get the report itself, but I'm going to show you sea level rise projected, and you're going to ask me what was the RPC, and I'm going to say it's in the report. And the 100-year storm event, I'm going to hit simulate. Now, if you look at this, you can say, wow, that's pretty freaking serious. Front harbor and back harbor almost join. The sea level rise was for 2100, which is 1.77 meters. But I want to point out to you, not only is the wastewater treatment plant inundated, all of the areas that you would put for comfort or put civilians, like say the community centers and places where you might pitch tents, like the ball fields, they're all flooded. The fire department is inundated. The industry of Abco is inundated. Houses. So it actually, if you thought that you were going to go here to house people, that's at a low-lying area. This wasn't common knowledge until we showed the town, and the operations people were astounded at what was going to happen. Now, let me show you what's really interesting. I'm going to go back here, the flooding scenarios again. I'm going to pick 2100, and I'm going to pick not a 100-year storm event, but a 10-year storm event. Now, I'd like you to watch the water levels very closely. I think I'll even zoom in for you. Watch these water levels very closely. Simulate. See how little they changed? It's not storms that are going to cause the issue. It's sea level rise. And I'll give you a little bit of history of this particular area. The Mi'kmaq people, this was a portage area. So what they would do if they wanted to go into the sheltered bays rather than going to more of the open ocean, they would go through here. They would portage, and they would go through Back Harbor, all in through the islands here, into Heckman's. It was all sheltered. It wasn't open ocean like Blue Rocks, and then they could go over to Second Peninsula. That is an established low-lying area, even though it's been filled in through, I'll say there was a town dump in here for a while and backfill's going on, but it's naturally a low-lying area. I'll also take you to Blue Rocks, if any of you are familiar with that. You can see very quickly, I know it's probably jerky in your end, and I'm going to go and just get rid of those projections. I'm just going to show you 2.4 meters is one of our high tides. If you can check that, it's 2.4 meters chart datum. And you can go and say, well, you know, that if you look here, you can see that it is getting very close to the road. You put a meter storm surge on that, all of a sudden, and if anyone has traveled down there, you'll know the roads are washing out. They've got huge armor rock. And the reason being is because when a storm event comes, this is primarily open ocean, and these roads do get attacked. That is the model. Let me show you what the town is doing. Actually, I'll just go and jump in here. What the town is actually doing with the wastewater treatment plant. So I'm going to go and take this back to 2.4 meters. That's a high tide. And if anyone's familiar with the area, you'll know that this is what it looks like on a full moon tide. This is what it looks like. So we had Dorian coming in. It was a meter storm surge in the back, but it was coming in on a falling tide. But this is pretty much what happened. The plant got inundated, killed all of the microbes, some of the equipment. But you notice, if you look here, it didn't actually go across the road, which it didn't. It came up through the culvert system. So now, in the short term, what they're going to do is they're going to control the backflow through the culvert system and the drainage of this area during storms and peak surge events. And now they're going to focus more on the long-term sea level rise and what it means for the town and the wastewater treatment plant. So with this, even though they had a lot of this knowledge already, when we visualized for the operations people and the council, they changed their direction. So seeing is believing, and visualization does help. I'm going to stop this and finish the actual presentation. I'm going to just end, which is I'm almost through. So we're back on this screen. Okay. And I'm trying to advance. It's not advancing. There we go. So, so what are we doing? We're also doing this in virtual reality, looking at for resources. We were working with the provincial government. We're working with the federal government, natural resources for fire modeling. We're also doing using this technology we developed for aquaculture sites, so people can ingest bathymetric or sonar data so they can visualize the bottom. It also helps people understand if perhaps a wind or wave tidal generation may be appropriate for a particular area. We've been in the news a little bit with Indigenous CBC, but we also we're in Information Morning, been in the local newspapers, a few testimonials. This talks about the work we're doing with the town of Mahone Bay and the living shoreline. Paul Bracken is the guy who changed how they were going to react to the flooding issue for town of Lunenburg. Tim Webster, many of you may know, we've worked with him in the early days and got him some funding to help us. An Indigenous consultant that we work with and have done some work with Maliseet First Nation Conservation Council. Here's our website. And thank you, and Willayan. I'm done.
Thank you, Barry. Your timing is perfect. And you've got lots of kudos in the chat so far. I'm going to pass it over to Steve Mockford, who's been monitoring for questions in the chat.
There actually are no questions in the chat, Barry. Lots of kudos, though.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, but I think we've got a couple of minutes, feel free to throw one in there.
Yes,
and if you could, Barry, the tendency throughout the day was for questions to accumulate afterwards. So if you wouldn't mind maybe following the chat for a while.
Oh, you're asking me to multiplex? Good luck with that.
Yeah. You're no older than I am.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this are you the only entity in, I mean, you've designed the program. Are you the only entity in Canada-wide that's doing this, or is this being done at sort of local scales all over the country and all over the province? Or do you guys have a sort of a corner on this market?
Well, currently, now we've done a lot of internal market research, and of course, as soon as you do it, it's dated. I've had external people looking at this, and I've got a consultant who's going to come on board. To answer your question, we are the only people that has been able to take LiDAR, parse it while maintaining the digital accuracy, the elevation accuracy, and allow it to be interacted on anybody's computer. It's being done in different shapes and forms on supercomputers, or you may be familiar with Clive and the University of PEI. They do it, but it's hosted on theirs. This is web accessible to anybody. We've also designed it so it can be used in remote First Nations. We can create and have created an executable, so you can use it even when the power is off if you've got a laptop and a battery. So yes, are you in marketing? You want to help us get it across Canada and across the world? I'd love to talk to you. Franchise is available.
Thank you. It's amazing. It's really impressive to see.
I have a question, Steve, before you carry ahead. Barry, that was an impressive, very impressive presentation. And I was just wondering, are you familiar with the Green Shores Coastal Development Program in BC?
No, I'm not. I have talked to some BC natives out there regarding firefighting. They've showed some interest, but everything else, no.
Yeah, this would be in line with coastal erosion and
okay.
Sea rise levels and whatnot. And I think we're developing a protocol for the East Coast, and I'm on an advisory board for that. And I would be really interested in discussing that with you and maybe some of the other people on that committee, and because I think you've got some valuable information that would be worthwhile tapping into in the future for the province. So.
No, I really would like to enter into that conversation, because this is something that's needed. And I've seen once we put it in people's hands, they're using it and they're affecting change, right? Mm-hmm. They're going ahead, Coastal Action and sought funding, and they're putting in the living shoreline. So once it becomes real, then people start to take action. If it's abstract in a report, yeah. And we can't wait anymore.
Yeah.
No, time and tide. Yep.
Yeah. We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick question, Barry. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Perfect. I'm wondering who do you create these programs for, and how does one work with you to have this program created? And my motive for that is I work with the Tobeatic Wildlife Park. And so we are right on the Shubenacadie River, which is, rises and lowers with the tides and our marshlands, plus just being part of that land parcel with surrounding Indigenous communities. I'm thinking this would be a very valuable tool when we're teaching about climate change and just for awareness for the communities as well. So, how does that happen? Who do you work with, or do you just work with everyone?
Well, we've essentially, you're talking to the person that would prepare you a quote, right? Now, having said that, some areas that we talk with or do work with, they have to fly the LiDAR. We've actually had LiDAR flown, but in Nova Scotia, as you're probably aware, the province has flown LiDAR for the entire province, and it's available through GeoNova. Now, I would have to have an understanding of what you want to do with it, right? And the size, right? Because I've had some people ask me basically do all the Bay of Fundy, and I go, well, that's going to cost, and there's no budget. Now, I could prepare a quote. We do it for First Nations. We do it for anybody that, if this can help, either maintain, I'll say, the shoreline, wildlife, houses, infrastructure. We're interested in working with you and finding out how we can help.
So go to your website for your contact information.
You could go to the website. The website has because I don't want to be called all the time, it only has an email address. It's sales@3dwavedesign.com. If you reach out to that, it comes directly to me. And I'll talk with you and get into the meat of this, at any time.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.